Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf.
And Emerald Robinson. Happy Inauguration Day, America.
Happy Inauguration Day. And Emerald, happy Inauguration Day to you. You've battled for this day for a long, long time. You were there with President Trump when no one else was, it seemed.
I know. I'm a Trump OG, but there's a lot of new kids in the club now.
I heard someone quoting someone on the transition. Maybe it was you quoting someone saying, if you haven't called me for 4 years, don't call me now.
I don't think that was me, but yeah, I would say that. You know what I mean? It's just, but it is funny. There's a lot of Johnny come latelys, and they all are at inauguration, it seems.
Should we? Wow. So we could do a number of things. We can start by assessing and analyzing the day so far, or we could actually live stream, I think, as we've done before, the parade, which is still ongoing. What's your view of how to?
I think we've got Kash Patel right now. It looks like he's speaking at the parade. I don't know if Brian's helping us produce today. We could pop in and out of some of the speakers, and maybe we could listen to a little bit of Kash, because look, Donald Trump actually did talk a lot about the weaponization of the federal government, particularly the DOJ and FBI, in his address today, his remarks, which I found very interesting. I didn't know what to expect. I was concerned when I saw the people that were on the platform with him. And so I expected a sort of, watered down speech, and that's not what we got. He actually he seemed to have his game face on, and he was very forthcoming about the challenges we face and the challenges he faces in becoming the head of government again. And I thought that was refreshing. I liked the Trump I saw in the speech. I don't like the people he had around him. And as we see Kash Patel talking right now, we don't have the feed going right now, the parade, but that is the current speaker, who is the nominee to lead the FBI, and he is tasked with, once he is confirmed, cleaning it up. Yeah. There's no other way to put it. And some interesting quotes from Trump's speech today that struck me as it related to the weaponization of government, of which he has been, target number one, but it has trickled down to just even average Americans.
1 second
at this point.
Emerald, I'm sorry. I'm just letting our producer know we need the live feed, please. Go ahead.
But Trump said this. He said, we have a crisis of trust when it comes to our federal institutions. He said that he seeks to restore integrity, competency, and loyalty in the American government.
So you felt like it was, I just want to say, I thought the inaugural whole spectacle was a home run, like incredibly powerful, incredibly moving, technically flawless, which, except for a few moments of mic issues, surprisingly inspired, surprisingly historic, patriotic, really Reagan-esque. I was uncomfortable, but maybe this is me, with the fact that he gave, like, usually an inaugural address is very ceremonial, very unifying, quite abstract, brief. And so I felt like he gave more of a campaign speech and engaged in some, partisan swipes that I didn't think were appropriate. On the other hand, he's got a mandate. Practically 70% of the country hates the other people, and they did try to kill him a bunch of times. And maybe that's appropriate. I don't know. Like, what do you make of the fact that the inaugural speech itself was such a departure from most inaugural speeches? They're not usually campaign speeches. They're not State of the Union speeches.
I understand where you might feel like it's had the tone of a campaign speech, but I disagree. I think it was a speech for the moment, because look at the kind of coalition he's assembled from the people who understand that people in government have actually been treasonous We're at a crossroads in the country, and I think he aptly acknowledged that. And when you were talking about his mandate, this is the phrase he used. He had a mandate. He has a mandate to reverse a betrayal.
Right.
It's been a very difficult 4 years. I don't think anyone, even from what party you're a part of, or you acknowledge, you would say it's been a good 4 years.
No,
and we are in a broken place.
By no means, Emerald, in no way. Like, everything he said was true. And by the way, you have some big fans. It's a little scary for me to come into Emerald Land. In Emerald Land, all of our comments are like, Emerald is so right, Naomi, you're so wrong. But it's okay, free speech. No, I just, look, everything he said is abundantly correct. I just, as a matter of American ceremonial and tradition, it's usually not done to do a blistering partisan speech.
The man had been shot at
twice.
Okay. He has been arrested by his political opponents. They are the ones who deviated from our ceremonial norms.
That's true.
And on his way out the door, Joe Biden was pardoning his family and Dr. Tony Fauci.
Okay.
Who, I mean, we should be having the Nuremberg 2.0 trials for.
Totally.
And in pardoning his sister and his brother and their spouses, Joe Biden admitted, I think, to their guilt. They know if they do an investigation and get going. So it is they who threw all that out the window. And we have to be honest, I believe, and I believe he did this at the moment we are in, because we can't get back to that beautiful America ceremonial unification, which I thought his speech was actually quite unifying. I think he did strike a chord of unity in a balanced way. But we can't get back there until we fix all this. I won't say the word.
So I will concede this one to you and your gigantic cadre of people in the comments. Like, literally is saying, look what they did to him. You're off base on this. You need to get out of your head with your old school thoughts. Whoa. And then we've got, yes, Emerald, yes, many exclamation points. And then they want, Cat Daddy wants us to cover how they thwarted stealing the presidential election and cover how down ballot races were still stolen. Well, that's your specialty. Do you want to say anything about that before we move on?
I have literally, so yes, I am working on a story which I've acknowledged on X related to how Donald Trump did triumph. What was it, right? Because as Liz Harrington, his former spokeswoman, who has been as dogged about election fraud as I have, and I discussed on my live coverage for Lindell TV today, nothing changed, right? The system was still in place, which we saw when it came to the down ballot races that led to this very tight margins in the House and the Senate, right? That allows them to tie Donald Trump's hands to a certain degree. I literally can't even start confirming with sources until 12:01 tonight. My sources have been so adamant with me, but I am going to start dropping stuff like a little bit tonight. Tonight will probably be a review of some of the stuff we know to start people in the right direction, and to refresh and get it is such a deep story. There is something that happened that prevented the steal.
Oh,
and
really?
We'll be able to share that soon. Yeah, I've been sitting on this.
What happens? Sorry to interrupt. What happens magically at 12:01?
Well, he is officially president.
But he's
there was a little concern. Look, everything happened. It was divine in a lot of ways, the way it worked out. I think some people have believed that the communists that have infiltrated our government somehow suddenly gave up. That's not the case. They have been fighting up to this very last moment. And that's why there was so much concern about this inauguration today. So many people that understand the national security state and the deep state have been holding their breath, just worried that something would happen. So
I've been terrified. I was terrified right up until the minute he, declared the oath that he would preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. I was terrified. You were terrified. We've been talking about
I
this.
was absolutely, yeah. And and it's not based on me. I understand. Yes, people get onto me because they think I'm pessimistic, and there's a bit of, I've seen a lot having covered Washington more than I've even talked about. So that does color my analysis and my commentary and my perceptions about what's going to happen. But this was also just I talked to so many national security experts, people still, tied to the defense and intel, and there was lots of concern. And you saw, I forgot to pull this up in my live coverage, but our friend Brandon Weicker was watching very closely how they brought him into the Capitol because he is a national security expert. And he noted he was completely obstructed from view, right, when they were bringing him in. The perimeter around him, the immediate perimeter, he was completely fortified. He had all these, bodies around him to the point that you can even see him. And that Brandon said really spoke to how big the threat was in having him outside, how concerned they were for his safety.
Now that it's hopefully behind us, what did the insiders or Weichert sources or your sources think were the biggest sources of threat? And by the way, before you answer, my producer is elsewhere. So perhaps your producer can do a live feed behind you when the time is right on the video screen.
I'd have to find it on YouTube. It'd take me, I would be that producer.
Really? Usually our producers are our husbands, and usually they're standing by. But
you know what one of my husband's flaws is? He can't operate a TV very well.
Oh, don't say that.
It is funny. Yes, it is true. And he will tell you that. The 10-year age gap between us really, really shows up when he's trying to find something on TV with the new streaming and all that.
I hate that too. The age gap between me and my husband is definitely going to show up when it's like, oh, Netflix, how do I do that, honey? Like for the 1,000th, millionth time. No, it's very embarrassing. We used to just turn the channel, baby. It was easy.
Yeah, it was right. You just had a few channels to choose from, and you turn the dial. But
I sound like such a dinosaur. We just turned the channel. I used to walk a mile to school. In the snow.
If you want to give me a minute, I can definitely do that. It looks like they're in a break right now, a little bit in between speakers. Donald Trump I think he's signing those executive orders right now. 200 plus executive orders. The first one, as he noted, was literally to declare the border crisis as a national emergency. And I don't know if you've seen these reports, but they're on social media. Some of my friends are reporting it, so I know it's true.
Really?
The app is already down. That Asylum app that was making it easier for illegals to claim asylum, it's already shut down. They had video of the people at the border, like no longer on their phones could they access that. He has already deployed the military to the border. An email went out as he was giving his remarks. Here's the thing. This is one thing that I have said. I have gotten frustrated with some of the hiring issues with the transition, but I have always said the policy side was really strong. They've been sitting, particularly Stephen Miller, who is the immigration hawk aide of Donald Trump. And then a guy that a lot of people might know, but I've known Michael Anton for several years now, excellent writer, just very poetic with how he writes, but he writes very beautifully about deeply concerning national security issues or cultural moments we find ourselves in. He was at the Trump NSC in the first Trump administration. He was one of those people that got pushed out by the bad holdovers and the bad people. He is back in, and he's got a key role at the State Department in overseeing policy at the State Department. And from what I've been told, this is going to be a role he can actually make a big difference. Michael Anton also wrote that Flight 93 election back in 2016, which, kind of told the moment we were in and the rise of Donald Trump, and it was spot on. he has been sitting there writing these executive orders along with Stephen Miller. So
Wow.
they had all of these ready to go.
Ready to go. Boom, boom, boom. So that was head spinning. And just so you know, my producer will soon be out of the shower and I can show him, he'll look at his phone and cue our live feed. But in the chat, I put the C-SPAN where people can follow the inauguration, or Emerald, if you are the tech genius, I'm not, you can add it to our.
If I can go to YouTube and put it me if you'd like.
Yeah, that would, if you think it's worth watching.
Look, this is behind the scenes. This is how it works, y'all. I just flip my TV to YouTube.
So a lot of people on the chat want to know about election night and how they tried to steal the election again. And Artie Fufkin, I can let you know, I know that's not your real name, that perhaps before you came on, Emerald was saying she is sworn to until after 12:01. And at that point, she is going to be able to report on what the steal was going to have.
I will start being able to drop some of the information. It's going to have to come, unfortunately, it's going to have to come in kind of a drip over the next few weeks, just for security reasons. But
really?
Yeah, still continued concerns about security with it. But
you know what?
We can drop some stuff.
The Brian O'Shea will be able to add the feed shortly as he emerges and looks at his phone. So if this is cumbersome, let's just talk about what's going on, because he's signing papers. It can't be as gripping as our narrative about it. So
well, actually, when Donald Trump does an executive order signing, it's much more entertaining than any other president does them. But he's not. They're showing right now, of course, the parade at the Capital One Arena. Right. Let me turn the mute on. This is RSBN feed. They're the ones who does shows more of what's actually going on with last commentary. So we're, like I said, we're in kind of a break. So we'll leave it there for now.
That's perfect. So can we go back to the trio of executive orders that you just mentioned? My head's spinning. So you said the app letting people into the country is gone. That's amazing. They could do that so quickly. That's like just technically.
Shut it off. Yeah.
How did they even get the code so quickly? I mean, that's a very nerdy question, but that's very impressive. Well, I guess they would just
shut it down from the State Department. It was
the State Department app. Right. Gotcha. And then the developer would have switched off the code. You said that they are, what were the other two things?
They're sending the military to the border to help deal with the issue at the border.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's now he has declared it a national emergency.
Right. So, and those are military or National Guard?
Let me see the email on that. That was coming in while he was talking. There's so much happening.
So much happening. It's amazing. What a relief. And I could really feel in the rotunda, and I said this with my commentary at the time, speaking as a former Democrat, I felt like even a lot of Democrats were relieved. I really did. Like, a lot of people have not been allowed to be patriotic. A lot of Democrats probably knew there was a traitor or a treasonous administration in power. And, they're lethal. They're criminal. It's a criminal cartel. And so I felt like the relief was bipartisan. Not everybody, certainly Mrs. Clinton looked like she was about to vote, and President Biden looked like he was near tears, and Kamala Harris looked unwell as well. And even Obama, who's usually so smooth, looked like there was a foul smell in the room.
And Mrs. Obama just didn't even make it.
Right. What? Yeah. Rumors about that, who knows what that's about. But I really felt like there was bipartisan relief. And specifically when you mention troops at the border, I think it is just bipartisan. Every race, every national origin, every religion, people want their country back. They don't want 30 million or 15 million or however many million people breaking the law to come get things, that Americans are getting, and just the lack of security and sovereignty. So what were the other executive orders you mentioned? There was one more, I felt, a big one.
I do have the language from the email that went out.
Yes.
It says the armed forces, including the National Guard, will engage in border security, which is national security, and will be deployed to to the border to assist existing law enforcement personnel.
Oh, wow. That is big. And I bet there's going to be lots of, like, whoever's running their comms department is so good. I know you have your issues with Susie Wilds, but they really do know what they're doing in terms of visuals and spectacle. And they have since midsummer, I feel. So I'm sure there's going to be some dramatic visuals coming from the border, and it'll be a relief.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for all those folks who do live down there at the border. Over the years, I've spoken to several of them, people who have ranches on the border, and they were not safe. And they would see, illegals being smuggled across their ranches. And there was the issue of the one who had an altercation and shot an illegal and went to trial for it. It has been just a disaster for people who actually live on the border. But as they said, a lot of states have now become border states. Look, I'm in the state of Virginia, and there has been Tren de Agua, the Venezuelan gang, some of those members have made their way into the Richmond area, from what I understand, which is just a few minutes down the road from me. I'm sure they're in DC and Northern Virginia as well.
What are they
gravitate toward those areas?
What activities? Sorry, what are they doing? Do you know? Like,
increased crime such as break-ins, car theft. Car theft has been majorly on the rise in general since the George Floyd riots, but apparently, not that would be in the DC area, but in Virginia. And I'll say I can't confirm that this is what happened, but we've had a lot more break-ins in my more sleepy city that is not DC or Richmond. And even and I live more in the farm area. And as of late, I am the ghost on Nextdoor app. I don't want to really interact with people, but I like to see what my neighbors are warning about or what they have to say. And I'm the peeping Tom, I guess, on Nextdoor. But there has been, even in when I tell y'all it's like sleepy and kind of more rural, even though we're just outside of city limits of a smaller city. We had the porch pirates for Christmas, and then now, which would have never happened around here. Not around here.
No, so not Southern. No.
And then now there's been people knocking at doors at 2 a.m. And
what?
A woman circulated the picture from her Ring camera. It's literally just about 3 streets away from me.
Oh my gosh.
Looked like maybe Venezuelan national knocking on the door, and what they're doing is saying they need help and then getting inside your house.
What did she do? That's so scary.
She didn't answer the door. And I saw one person comment, well, why didn't you open the door? They might have needed help.
We're not in that America anymore.
I would rather stay alive. And then, and she was home alone, and she had her two kids at home, she said.
Oh my God.
So this is not our America. It's just so different. And again, we would have never had to have worried about that in this area. Now, it's interesting though, because so we kind of joke, there's this one housing community next to me that we're in a red district, but they kind of pull us down a little bit. We joke, I'm a Republican, but they've moved in and they've started voting Democrat. And I think that this is not okay with them. They're going to be relieved to see the border cleaned up and some of these mass deportations to make this community safe again.
Right, for sure. That's the big secret that I think you'll find, is that my former tribe are very herd oriented. And when the consensus is you can't say something like, well, with all these illegal people here, I'm worried about crime because that's racist. Now that the president is doing something about it, they can silently breathe a sigh of relief, never say, I agree with him, but they're secretly cheering it on. So I'm sorry that my former tribe are such craven, cowards, but that's how we roll. So I think you're going to see a lot of silent affirmation. And again, that's what I felt in the rotunda. Didn't you feel it? Like everybody, like he got a standing ovation from probably 80% of the people there. And that partisan chamber, that doesn't happen. Usually it is one half of the house or the other standing up and cheering. And I just think people are happy to be American again. Just before we drill in a little more, was there anything that really surprised you or worried you about the inauguration so far?
Well, heck yeah.
What?
I was very worried to see Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and the Google guy, who I always butcher his name, so I just won't even attempt it,
Google
sitting
that.
there front row in front of the cabinet and allowed to bring their loved ones with them when the cabinet wasn't allowed to bring spouses. I was livid. Okay. I'm sorry. These people killed people by denying them the information. They've censored people and hurt their livelihoods. I mean, Facebook censoring a lot of my friends. I didn't rely on Facebook for income. I probably could have one day, but I didn't get that opportunity to grow it. But a lot of my friends took a real hit with this kind of censorship. And Google and YouTube, are you kidding me? David Martin just had his video. He put up a video interview with me and him just the other day, and Google took it down. This was 3 weeks ago. Yeah. It's still happening. No, I have not forgotten, and I have not forgiven, and I know I'm Christian and I'm supposed to, but these people are too evil. So I am concerned about that. People say, oh, well, maybe he's keeping his enemies closer.
It's a lot. Let's dive into this, because I was asked earlier when I was commenting on it live, what about that seating? And from what I know of White House and Capitol protocol, the more forward you are, the more important you are, right? And that is a status thing. And so
it is.
Totally. So to seat the oligarchs, the tech oligarchs, and their, at least in one case, very inappropriately dressed loved ones, in front of,
I'll say it, Lauren Sanchez. This is looking at you wearing a what do they call them? Well, I guess it's kind of a bustier. Somebody called it a bralette, but it was lingerie, whatever it was.
It was lingerie. It wasn't appropriate, and that it really stood out because everyone else I really noticed visually was so appropriate. Like there was no flashiness.
Well, she was literally front and center, and then there's this great screen grab of Mark Zuckerberg going on and saying, "Oh, Meta's still doing their fact check," so he's like this, looking down at her. That was funny.
That's funny, but definitely a false note, in an otherwise very elevating and inspiring ceremony, because it's bad enough that the people couldn't be there, even representatives of the people, because of the security issue. It was just the House and Senate, but it wasn't just the House and Senate. It was Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and the Google guy and Jeff Bezos and their girlfriends and sitting in front of RFK Jr. in front of RFK.
Did you see his face? I mean, I was watching his face intently, and he did not look thrilled about it.
He looked mad, as he should be. As that's not what he signed on for. It's not what Maha signed on for. And it's not what the cabinet signed on for. I agree with you, Emerald. God, we're going to be two lonely chicks in the next 4 years because...
Look, I've been lonely my whole life. I'm always the weird one out.
Well, because you speak truth to power. And that did look like a thoroughgoing Soviet-style oligarchy. It did. What the heck are they doing?
Technocracy. That's what I said. I did tweet it. I said, if you didn't believe we were in a tech oligarchy before, well, here it is, right on display before your very eyes. I said some variation of that.
What's that about? I mean, I appreciate Bannon, is the filterer, right, of the message and the spinner of the message. And I don't mean that in a critical way, right? He's the great communicator. And his narrative about what's going on with the tech bros, and they looked scared when they were at church, by the way. I don't know if you saw that earlier this morning.
They probably thought they were going to burst into flames.
I shouldn't laugh. That's very funny. But his sort of explanation is that they're hostages, or not hostages, I'm sorry, that they're trophies, like the Visigoths, being brought into Rome to show the population, like these are our spoils of victory. I want to interpret it that way, but you don't really treat the spoils of victory. But
no, you need to demean them more. You don't put them you put them in the very back.
The very back, bringing in the
team. Be there and pay homage to you, but you totally demean them.
Totally demean them, yes.
I would have been fine with it if it was a metaphorical, and I want to make sure everyone understands I'm saying metaphorical, not literal red wedding.
Right.
Like Game of Thrones, not actually killing them, but
Right.
Humiliating us so badly.
Invested, Emerald. Say it again so they don't come handcuff you.
Metaphorical,
Thank you.
metaphorical red wedding. Murder their reputations and their pride.
Exactly.
Okay, not them.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I asked Liz Harrington on air about that, and she's like, yeah, I don't know. We've all been so censored. They have literally killed people.
Yeah,
you and I can't stress that enough. They are culpable in the deaths of millions of people.
Right.
And for the past stolen election too. Zuckerberg is one of the reasons they were able to pull off the steal in 2020.
Without any question. I don't understand the game here. I don't understand the play.
Somebody suggested maybe he wants to stay alive, and by looking like he's bowed down to the tech oligarchy and the surveillance state, I don't know.
I don't know. You'd have to go pretty far. There are many things he said in that speech that are not going to endear him to people who want to get rid of him. The most radioactive thing he said in terms of his own personal security, and may he live to be 120, as we say, is that he wants no more wars. I believe that is the number one reason that they've tried to take him out, sideline him, put him in jail, bankrupt him. He wants no more wars. He's not a Northrop Grumman bitch. He wants no more wars. And that means the war machine doesn't get to be fed by our young adults and our millions and billions. I think that's the most radioactive.
There was a lot he said in that speech, and that's why I was surprised. Oh, and then it was very interesting. I don't know, a lot of people probably dipped out of the coverage because they saw the remarks. They saw the lovely rendition of the America the Beautiful. Carrie Underwood did such a fantastic job. Her music, she was unscathed by the fact that there was no music. She's just like,
oh, was that a cappella? Was that unexpected or unscripted?
Yeah, she was supposed to have music and it didn't work.
Good for her.
I was very impressed with her. She's obviously a true talent. But after all of that happened and they left and they came down to a sort of like a lobby, in the Capitol building, and they had more chairs set up in there for the people who couldn't actually be in the chamber. And Speaker Johnson led another kind of appearance. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump spoke again, and he was throwing his speechwriters under the bus for taking out some, important pieces that he wanted in there. And part of it, and some of that related to the J6ers. So he was not trying to hold back or be politically safe in that speech. So for him to have the tech bros there and to do that, and I even wrote this down because it pertained to you and I specifically. Mm-hmm. He said, in front of them, we will end all government censorship and bring back free speech to all Americans.
I was literally screaming. I was screaming with joy. And that, to his credit, that was aimed right at the tech bros sitting behind him. What a dramatic, historic, it's Elizabethan. It's so dramatic, right? The reversal.
It's very poetic.
It's very poetic. It's very Shakespearean. It's unbelievable. Or it's like, it has that quality too of Esther and Haman, and Haman erects the gallows to kill all of Esther's people, and then Esther turns out to be killing all of Haman on the same gallows. It's like, again, metaphoric.
That's like my favorite Bible story, one of them.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. It does definitely apply here, doesn't it?
It does apply. It does, and that's also what's scary, because the last thing we want, or the last thing I want, is for President Trump to take this mandate and to turn it into, the last presidency or a one-party state, or a permanent, a tyranny, essentially. We are scared of that, not because
you're afraid that Donald Trump would do that. Really, you're still afraid of that?
Yes, because
really?
Well, bear with me, because I don't want all our fans screaming.
Oh, here we go, y'all.
Here we go. What I mean is, from my life observing those at pinnacles of power, it is human nature. And also that power gets addictive. And he has even more power now than he had the last time he was president. I think well, you've seen them, all those people, the senators, the members of Congress, they go in with beautiful morals and ethics, and they get corrupted, they get seduced, they take the bad money, they don't want to, be accountable to the people. And
Yeah, I always warn the freshmen in class of the ones that I cover their election cycles and who I get to know on the campaign trail. And if they win and they come, and I tell them, you have some grand ideas right now, and you're pure of heart.
Mhm.
Just try to stay that way, because they're going to throw everything carrot and stick at you to change you.
Exactly, Karen. So all I was going to say about Trump specifically, I don't think he's more oligarchical than anyone else. I think he's probably less oligarchical, partly because he's had all the money in the world his whole life, right? And he's been famous his whole life. But here's what I fear. And I fear it sometimes, with people I adore on the right, like Bannon, right? I just and there's real basis for it, but the Democrats, what we've been through, has been so evil, so treasonous, so tyrannical, so unfair to Trump and MAGA, that it would be easy to rationalize, let's not, they did this to us, let's do this to them. They were so horrible, we can't let them have the chance of coming back into power. I think that's human nature. That would be human nature. I think it's a temptation.
Here's what I would tell you. I don't think so. He had the opportunity, and he would have been justified based on everything we know about the rigged 2020 election, according to executive orders and honestly the Constitution. He could have taken more action as president then, and he was urged to in a specific meeting in the White House following the 2020 election. And I know people that were in that meeting that were extremely frustrated with him because they felt like, as the president, as the commander in chief, he was supposed to. It was his duty, and they felt like he let America down by not doing it then.
Interesting.
So he grappled with, and I wish I could remember, I have the exact quote written down because I've sat and talked to every person who was in that meeting, and taken notes. He said it would be bad for America. Even though that's his right, he thought that he should not push forward with doing certain executive actions that he had the right to do. And my contacts would argue the constitutional duty to do, because he was afraid that it would look like that, or that it would accidentally put America on an authoritarian path. Now, I would say it did, because he didn't take action, and we got what I would say is an illegitimate president, a stolen election. And we were one step away. They talk about authoritarian and tyrannical. We almost lost our country to that. We've been granted a reprieve, but I don't think he desires that. I truly don't. And having been around, he would have had to have changed a whole lot in the last couple of years. And I don't, since I've really sat down with him and talked to him, in depth like that. And I don't see that he has. I think that he still has his grand love and ideas for the American idea and for our Constitution. And I think he does want to ride it on the correct path. And he's not a true Republican, he's kind of a third party. And MAGA has sort of become that, in a lot of ways.
So has Maha. Well, let me put it another way.
Okay.
What if, and this is really a genuine what if the Democrats are so infiltrated by now with the Chinese Communist Party, which they thoroughly seem to be, looking at events in LA, which we discussed in our segment, that it's legitimate to try to keep them from ever getting back into power? What if they're no longer an American party?
That's a good question. I would think that how he would view it is that you expose it. And remember, especially when we're talking about the China threat, his administration was very good at exposing that in the first administration and taking steps to counter it. I think you're going to see that a lot of that was pulled back on in the Biden years. There was some things they did that apparently didn't get some attention in regards to sanctions and, sanctioning companies from foreign investment, particularly in China. But overall, the focus got taken off of the China threat to academia, to universities, to tech, right? We talked
Right.
about that a lot with the H-1B controversy.
Mhm.
And the kind of spies we get from these student visas, even you're going to see a big focus on that unless, I mean, I would be shocked if there wasn't, but another focus on that. So I think that they will approach it from the means of exposure, making it harder for Chinese officials to infiltrate our government. And remember, particularly, they were focused on making sure that the governors were educated. And because, I mean, it's not just federal, federal level representatives of government. They get down even to the city councils. I mean, China really plays the long game. And so, yeah, so they were focused on educating and working with the state and local officials on countering that China threat too. So I think they would approach it from that angle rather than saying we just have to stay in power. Now they will make the appeal to the American people, and let's say you're already seeing, and it's kind of funny to me, I was doing a replay. I was going to say, so a lot of the people you see speaking, right, at the post inauguration ceremony, parade, whatever that we were just seeing, was a lot of contenders for 2028. So the race, since there's only 4 years, has already started as of today. It made me laugh a little bit. You had Governor Glenn Youngkin on the stage. You had Byron Donalds. There's some talk of him, even, the representative from Florida. You saw that already sort of happening. But I think that will, particularly if, say, J.D. Vance is the heir, the heir to the throne, if you will, to running, they'll put a lot of focus on that and call out. I mean, they tried that with Joe Biden, and there was so much evidence there. It just didn't, but I think people get it now a little bit more.
Yes. Wow, that's we got a disgusting, harassing comment that I won't read. I'll just ignore that. Let's move on. I want to ask you about anything else that startled or surprised you or gave you any anxiety about the inauguration to date. If that's it, the tech bros, then we're way ahead.
I think so far it's really the tech bros, because I thought his speech hit a note. He's already taking executive action. That is what he promised.
Right.
I'm waiting to see, and I know, please forgive me, folks. I keep looking down because I'm anxiously awaiting to see what actions being taken related to the J6ers, because they're near and dear to my heart. I've talked to so many of their families and the J6ers themselves, and so I'm waiting, to see that. But he's already taken action. But again, it will be the days and to follow. I had this conversation I had your husband on for another panel today, because he and a couple guys are just so good, because they have so many different, different levels of expertise in different parts of the government, FBI, CIA, Intel overall. And what one of them said that was, I thought, very, very spot on, named Nate Kane. He's former FBI. He said, it's how fast does Trump start weeding these people out? Because that's going to make a huge difference to how successful he actually is.
That's been your theme consistently. You've been consistently concerned about that. So is that it for things you're anxious about?
I really don't feel, I mean, the tech bros bother me, but everything else thus far has been pretty good. You see the general, hangers on, the ones who were against Trump, not just the tech bros, but some of those senators and congressmen and just other high profile Republicans who were totally against Trump and his agenda, who have now, are acting like they've always been there. And that gets annoying. And some of them will have places in his administration, unfortunately, but that is the way of it in DC, unfortunately.
Right. So Artie Fufkin, again, it's a hilarious handle, says Davos 2025 is ongoing. Apparently many world leaders are not there. I did not know that. That's really interesting. Is this the Trump effect? Are we watching the opening shots at ending the World Economic Forum and globalism? So many world leaders are not there because they no longer want to be affiliated with the World Economic Forum because Trump's in power? That's so fascinating. What's your thought about what Artie asked?
That's a really great question, Artie. And you know what? I realized I haven't even been paying attention to Davos because I've been so focused on the inauguration and the security concerns surrounding it. But that does seem like it would be a Trump effect, right? And I'm sure so many of them have traveled to the United States. I've seen a lot of pictures of dignitaries and world leaders here trying to curry favor, though they were definitely not, pro another Trump presidency not so long ago. I think, and I've said this before, I think that we'll have to watch the ever-changing face of the globalist movement, in that, and this is what my concern was once it was obvious that they weren't going to be able to steal it, is how do they shape shift to make it look like they're giving up, but they've just changed tactics, which they're really good at. And I'll give the example again of Larry Fink of BlackRock saying, okay, well, no, don't say DEI anymore. Don't say DEI. That's a dirty word. But they had another way of, semantically, they were playing a game of semantics, and it was still a DEI approach that they wanted to do. They just didn't want to be associated with that term anymore because it has such a bad connotation and nobody was for it. So we have to be ever vigilant of that. I think this is a great start because it's forcing them to change, right? But we have to be mindful that they're not just going away. They have invested a lot in this, and they have a lot of plans, particularly for the year, their target year is 2030. Right. That's not that far away.
And they've been lurching ahead with so many of their key goals, like central bank digital currency. And oh God, they don't quit. Weirdly, I was approached, Emerald, by someone representing Thierry Maillet, who is Klaus Schwab's co-author of The Great Reset. And I interviewed Dr. Maillet, and I'm interviewing him again. And I got to, ask all the questions I had about the globalists and what their plans are and why they think they can dictate the lives and deaths of millions of people around the world. But it's not off the record because it's a public conversation. That side of the whatever they are was very interested in whether Trump was coming to Davos, and they really wanted him to come to Davos. So I'm very, very glad he didn't go to Davos. I think that was a wise move. And if he dismantles their power the way he's planning to dismantle the World Health Organization, that is so salutary for the world. I mean,
I agree.
And can I just say, he also said it. He's reinstating the service members who got fired or, laid off or whatever.
I love that. I almost cried when he said it because I know you, I have talked to so many of them, and it has been absolutely devastating. And to give them back pay, reinstate them and give them back pay. That's a bit of that restorative justice. That's a term we've all adopted. It's not just about justice, about restoration as well.
Did you hear how often, who was it? It was the rabbi talked about justice. There was a lot of themes of justice. I do love how President Trump kind of signals with poetry and with music. Also the Battle Hymn of the Republic, right? As one
amazing.
Amazing. But also, isn't that a Civil War anthem? My memory is it's from the Civil War.
I guess.
But
it made me feel patriotic. I didn't think about that.
It's about division and unity, but it's also about justice. Here, he's coming with his terrible swift sword. It's like, justice. He's signaling, he's signaling it's not
Trump loves symbology. Not only is he the ultimate symbol, because really at the end of the day, he struggled with the actual governing and, in the first term. And I hope I'm seeing something different from him today. So I'm feeling very hopeful about the second term, but he is very good with the symbols and conveying his message. And I think that's one reason he's really emotionally connected with so many of the American people.
Totally. And Barry Atkinson, who's our old friend, says no more communist red China flag waving in our cities like San Francisco.
Wow, that's big.
That is very big. Oh, just think about it. And what's your feeling about there are going to be officially two genders? That's also kind of big.
That really, what? It's funny how many people that was really like, yeah. And I'm like, I thought it was great he said it, but it really did resonate with a lot of people. You know what really struck me, and because it's personal to me, he mentioned the people of North Carolina. And so I just know that so people watching in Western North Carolina must have just breathed a sigh of relief because they know now that help is actually on the way. It was said with an authority that there was going to be action behind it.
Right.
And it was a mention, but it was an important mention. And I personally loved when he talked about the building of our country and, our roads and bridges and feeling patriotic about the people who contributed to the building of our country. Sorry, I know sometimes I get emotional. He mentioned coal miners. And my daddy was a coal miner, and that's how my daddy felt about being a coal miner. He felt like he was contributing to a part of, making America great and the building of our country. And when my dad passed in 2020, this was pre-pandemic. My dad passed in January of 2020 from cancer. President Trump wrote a very beautiful message on Twitter, because he was still on Twitter then, about, what a great American my dad was and a great coal miner. And that meant a lot to me. And I know it would have meant a lot to my father to be acknowledged by the president of the United States, saying that, what he did was meaningful to our country.
That's so beautiful and special. And I have to say, like, this is kind of impressionistic, but I've been to 2 Trump properties, right? To Bedminster and to Mar-a-Lago. And there's this incredible pride that the staff seems to have, going all the way down to the most menial person. The reason I mention this is that today he did something unusual, or his chief of staff did, or his chief of protocol. Maybe it was our friend Monica Crowley. I don't know if she's responsible for this kind of thing yet, but the people who do the protocol were named. The House staff, like the staffers who make it happen, were named. And I think there were 2 reasons for that. One was to stress that this was a legitimate succession. They were doing everything absolutely by the book. It was bipartisan. It was traditional. No stone was left unturned. But also, I really noted, and I think his spokesperson also posted a picture of the housekeeping staff kind of spiffing up the podium in the White House. And she thanked them for getting it ready, the hardworking White House staff getting it ready for the transition. There is this sense of recognizing everyone, no matter how quote unquote humble. And it's so the opposite of the condescending, arrogant, smug elitism of the last 4 years, which is so ironic, because the Democrats were supposed to be the party of the little guy, quote unquote, but you really feel it's a new day in which literally people up and down the quote unquote hierarchy are being acknowledged for what they do. And so is that something you think is a hallmark of Trump's management?
Well, I mean, you've heard all these stories, I'm sure, over the years. People who work at Trump property talk about how he'll just stop and ask you what you're doing and talk to you. You might be fixing something, or if you're in construction, you're building something, and he'll stop and ask you what you're doing, how you're doing it. And people who work at his properties for years seem to just really think the world of him. I mean, there's been so many stories out there over the years, especially as they were trying to malign him. They wouldn't show those people in the mainstream media or recount their stories, but you would hear them, and it completely painted the opposite picture of the man they had heretofore portrayed him as in the corporate media. But I think there's been a shift with that too, right? You can tell that the press, I've seen it a little bit already, even in the press reports, because they previously were so unprofessional, even in their press pulling reports, and so snotty, just snotty and snarky and underhanded, kind of veiled insults, even in the pool reports. But everything's a little more buttoned up.
Right.
Already. So it'll be interesting to see how they interact with him this time around. I think it'll probably be a little bit different.
So we only have 1 or 2 more minutes before we thank our sponsors. I want to know, why is Vivek Ramaswamy no longer in Doge? And let's talk about fashion choices.
You know what? I'm really bad with fashion, but yeah, let's do it. If it's about symbology, I can do it. So it sounds like Vivek really, really shot himself in the foot when he went out there and has certain things to say about American culture. When defending the H-1B. He suggested that we just were culturally inferior and,
lazy, stupid.
Yeah. Lazy. And I don't think that his comments have not sat very well. And it sounds like, and even I noticed his face. Some today he posted a picture of he and Elon but you could tell that he was disturbed. He definitely looks like a little kid that's kind of been chastised a bit. So they're saying, several people are saying it's because of those comments.
Interesting. And also, I have to say, as an American, rather satisfying.
Again, poetic justice.
Well, it's okay to, how can I put it? It's okay to be patriotic. It's okay to, as the president said, put Americans first and put America first. And that is a really insulting thing to say. I would never go to France or Morocco and say, well, of course, you really need to hire Americans here because the Moroccans are lazy and stupid, or the French are lazy and stupid. It's cultural colonialism, right? It's the thing that the left is supposed to hate so much.
Yeah.
It's a bad move. It's a bad look. I'm kind of glad he did that. Well, lastly, fashion. What leaps out? I loved Mrs. Vance's lavender suit. I, of course, thought
it was really pretty.
It was so pretty. I thought Melania Trump looked stunning and perfect as usual, incredibly understated. What do you make of the hat?
Well, it's funny because it's getting a lot of social media attention for perhaps symbolism.
Oh.
And I hadn't thought about it. Somebody asked, I saw someone pose the question, is this a hat? Oh, Ann Coulter noticed it because she's like, she looks at the whole picture and wonders, what does it mean? And she said, is this a hat tip, pun, to something from Breaking Bad, and then somebody made a meme of her picture from today with the hat, which she looks bad. She looks great in hats. I love hats myself. And I wear them every opportunity I get. And then she has the picture of the character from V for Vendetta. Remember the Anonymous? And it was like, whoa. And because Melania does that. Melania uses clothing to convey a message.
Wow.
So I don't know. I got to think, and then with his kind of really game face that he has today, I'm like, maybe she did mean something by her outfit.
Interesting.
Either way, she looked beautiful.
She did look really beautiful and really subtle. I mean, I hate the word classy because it's vulgar, but she looked classy.
I think she's just the picture of class with how she dresses and holds herself. And if you've ever met her, she's just exactly like that. She has a very regal air about her. And you just kind of you're just amazed by her. You just want to look at her. And I don't always agree with her positions on certain she's not technically a conservative per se, but I think she's a fantastic first lady. I think she, wears it well. I think we'll see, as I said, the last episode, her out more. And I'm excited to see her fashion choices. And I'm not even a fashion person. She makes me like fashion. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No, indeed. I mean, I don't usually pay attention to it, but we've gone through 4 years of fashionlessness, right? So it's going to be a pleasure.
Some really bad fashion. And Kamala Harris, I mean, honestly, I'm sure some women just wouldn't have voted for her so they didn't have to see any more brown pantsuits.
Yes, God, that was awful. That was so
awful. And she's a pretty, I know I'll probably get flack for this. She's an attractive woman. Dressed in something else, she looks so much better.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why they did that. It seems like they did it in person, deliberately, just to depress and demoralize us. Well, we've run to the end of our time. That was so productive and useful. Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. Brian O'Shea is out of the shower and on the job. Thank you, honey. Yeah, and that was one of the better ones, right? But no, it's gonna be golden age of fashion as well as everything else, hopefully.
Well, and JD Vance's wife looks like she has a very keen eye for fashion, and she's what I like that I normally don't like on most people, but she's letting some gray come into her hair. Yeah. And because she has such a young looking face, it's very intriguing. I think it looks very elegant with her. I noticed that. And I liked how her hair was put back today.
That's lovely. Well, I did write an essay over.
I don't look like that with the gray in my hair.
You would look beautiful with any,
which there's a lot today.
But no, you're perfect. But I did recommend, putting on my consultant hat over the summer that MAGA be a little less Vegas showgirly in its aesthetic. Like there were a lot of no disrespect, but extensions and false eyelashes and plastic surgery, and a look that a lot of swing voters who are women think of as very time consuming and expensive and just not relatable.
And
And
you mean the standard Fox girl uniform, some
exactly,
jewel tone, tight fitting bodycon dress.
exactly, which I kind of love that look, but I recognize that it's not going to be um, reassuring to every woman who's working two jobs or, home with six kids or whatever, all the things we deal with as women. So I'm really pleased that the women on stage, except for some notable exceptions like the ones wearing lingerie who were there with tech bros, were very subtly dressed and understated and not hogging attention. Right. And I've nothing against hogging attention. I like attention. It just seems like a good evolution for the Trump aesthetic because it's very, I don't know, respectful of women, inclusive of women. And it also created a very strong focal point around the president and the vice president and their spouses, which is as it should be.
I would like it. I would like it to go more Jackie O myself. I mean, there was one day like I showed up at the White House press corps. It was the Trump years, and literally like 5 of us had on the same dress.
Oh my gosh, you serious?
Yeah, because everybody would use Rent the Runway, which is this dress service, and because you're always between the girls that worked at the White House and the press corps, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna change my look up. I'm kind of tired of this jewel tone dress thing anyway. And so I did completely. I'm like, I'm going to wear different kinds of stuff, and then I'll never run into the issue where I'm wearing. But also, I just like, and you know what I do love? I love the 50s aesthetic on women and the lines. And I wish we could go back to that. I thought it was just beautiful and feminine, and some of the 50s and 60s looks, 40s. So I would appreciate, if she could influence style.
Right. Oh no, the first lady, absolutely. Yes, I mean, I think everyone expects her to be a fashion plate and sort of a harbinger of fashion trends. It just was generally a good look on stage. It was harmonious too. Often you get a lot of. Think about 2020. There were all these weird Chinese, almost like Hunger Games type outfits, like crayon yellow coats. No, seriously, it was
it kind of fit the moment, right?
Everything was wrong. So this just seemed like unified and elegant and good. And let's bring back the 50s. I like this can be a time, right? There's so much repressed feminine energy. I like the Renaissance, I like.
Oh, me too.
I like wearing chaplets of flowers in my hair. I mean, let's do all the crazy things, embroidered children. It's a whole new era. Okay.
You know what? That look also will hold up well in pictures through history, right? Because they're going to be in the history books. Yeah. And I think the look stands the test of time. You don't look back and go, huh? Like, what was that?
Right. Exactly. No, it's so
very
good.
Elegant.
All right. Well, happy times. Let's thank our sponsors. I want to thank Birch Gold. There are going to be increased tariffs on our trade partners. The president said so today. Tax cuts and regulation changes. You should learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company that Brian and I trust, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era, and the forward is by Donald Trump Jr. Get your free copy along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold. Text Daily Clout to the number 989898. The national debt is going to continue to increase. Our interest payments on the national debt will also increase. Gold is still our hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold is still the company Brian and I trust to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Text Daily Clout to 989898 for your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There's no obligation, just information with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers. You too can trust Birch Gold. Text Daily Clout to the number 989898 today. And I want to talk about collagen.
Do you want me to do that for you?
If you can talk about collagen, you should.
Let me see if I do have my collagen. Maybe I still have the hydrate up. So if you tell them about collagen, I'll also pipe in.
Well, here's what I want to do, because you're doing the collagen challenge and I'm doing the collagen challenge for January. I will tell them where to go, which is getnativepath.com/daily clout. And then you get 40 up to 45% off. And then you can tell them what collagen is doing for you.
Okay, that sounds great. I am doing the 30-day challenge. I actually have to drink it today. I've been so busy. I haven't yet. It's just a scoop of powder you can put in your coffee, or I also pair it with the hydrate because I like to get them both in at once. The Native Path Hydrate, which is an electrolyte, and gives you great hydration. I pair it with my collagen usually, and I've gotten really addicted to the hydrate. I drink more than one dose of that a day. Because it just tastes so good. But the collagen blends really easily, unlike collagens I've used in the past, because I have been trying to do collagen over the last couple of years, because after I had babies, my hair, the quality of my hair just got terrible. It was so brittle, it was falling out. And I was told that drinking collagen would help restore my hair, which it did. But I did also discover that not all collagen is the same. Not only did it not blend well, right? I would have to take a fork and try to declump it, even as I was drinking it with whatever I was pairing it with, whether it was coffee or some other kind of powdered drink, or water. But I just have noticed that I've been doing the Native Path now for, what day are we? 20 days, 19 days. The first day of the new year. I wasn't quite on board yet. But I can tell a big difference. And I do notice, like with my hair, I have naturally curly hair, and it can just kind of get dry. It's not as dry. Like I have some bounce to it. And I notice just a better texture with my skin. I love it. I've been recommending it, particularly to friends of mine who are moms and struggling with their hair and skin, because and it's not just for women. I also have my husband drinking it because he complains. My husband's a little bit older than me. He loves when I throw him under the bus like that.
Why are you doing that?
And he's getting, if you saw him, you would never know it. I have to do it because people think he's younger than me. He's like Peter Pan. He's got amazing genetics. He does. It's incredible.
Age is just the number.
It is. It really is. And when you see him, it really is. But he has noticed, since he's hit a certain decade, he's getting a little more aches and pains. So the collagen really helps. He didn't believe me at first. And I am someone who's had 5 knee surgeries because I'm a past collegiate athlete. And I can tell a huge difference as I've hit my 40s. The scar tissue now starts to get inflamed. I don't have much collagen left in my left knee. So that's something they told me, back years ago. I have noticed a huge difference in my mobility. And I'll let you tell them again where they can get it.
Yes. So you've got to go. So I just want to second and third what Emerald is saying. I too am on the collagen challenge, and it just makes such a difference. And I too especially notice a difference in my hair and my skin, when I do and when I don't take the Native Path collagen. So thank goodness that we are on the challenge and on the path and staying on the path, as they say. As Chad Walding, the CEO, says. So that's getnativepath.com/daily clout. Amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands, with over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee. It is your trusted choice, Native Path. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes. You'll have a real person, and you can even join a Facebook community for support, stories, recipes. Unbelievable. Not only that, buyoptimizers.com. Sleep. We need collagen. We need money. We need sleep if we're going to live through these crazy times successfully. There's one phase of sleep, Emerald, that almost everyone fails to get enough of, and that's that deep REM sleep that lets you detox and heal, and also just process your emotions, have good dreams. So when I struggle to fall asleep at night, I get stressed out about being exhausted the next day, and then I'm cranky and irritable and have just up and down moods and energy. But once I started taking Magnesium Breakthrough, my sleep totally changed. And now I fall asleep easily and I wake up refreshed and energized. So it turns out magnesium is the key to everything. I had no idea. I interviewed the CEO of Magnesium Breakthrough also. Over 3/4 of the population is magnesium deficient. And what most people don't know is that even if they're taking a magnesium supplement, they may still be deficient because they're not getting all 7 forms of magnesium. So Magnesium Breakthrough is the ultimate way to give your body all 7 forms in one supplement. So, and it turns out that people who are deficient in magnesium get diabetes type symptoms. It can be a precursor to heart problems, things that are medicated wrong, like they're misdiagnosed. And magnesium has been depleted from our soil. I learned this in my interview with Wade Lightheart, who's the founder of Magnesium Breakthrough. So don't miss out on the most relaxing sleep ever with Magnesium Breakthrough, as well as heading off all those other symptoms you don't want. For an exclusive offer, go to go to bioptimizers.com/dailyclout now and enter promo code dailyclout to get 10% off any order. And again, that's 7 different forms of magnesium in one supplement. And if you subscribe, you'll get amazing discounts and free gifts. And you will also make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. It's so much more important than I realized. I did not know that magnesium deficiencies go to all kinds of other horrible symptoms. So very critical.
Well, and definitely lead to depression. I think there was just a recent study, right, showing how magnesium deficient people tend to be, are the ones that might have to take antidepressants. So they're treating a lot of that with magnesium now.
Wow, that's really interesting. Actually, thank you for reminding me, because Mr. Lightheart also said anxiety and depression, and that there are peer-reviewed studies. So all these people are being dosed with SSRIs when they could just be magnesium deficient. And SSRIs have horrible side effects, of course, including sexual problems. So you don't want that. So, one doesn't want that. So go to bioptimizers.com/dailyclout, promo code dailyclout. So, and also remember, you all, if you want independent journalism and commentary, who tells you the truth like we do? Who lays it bare like we do, right? Who gets in trouble with everyone like we do, just because we don't hold back or mince our words or trim our sails to suit the prevailing winds? You got to support Emerald and Naomi and Daily Clout, and you do it by supporting our sponsors. You can also go to Daily Clout, donate or subscribe. You can go to Substack, to Outspoken, donate or subscribe to me. Find me at Naomi R. Wolf on X. And Emerald, where do people find you and how do they support you?
You can subscribe to me on Substack the right way at emerald.tv. It's emerald.tv. And you can also follow me at Emerald Robinson. And if you like kind of something a little news intensive, stories you won't see, but a rundown on kind of the important stories, particularly politically, you can, join me on Lindell TV at 8 p.m. at night, Monday through Friday.
Don't miss it. Okay. Thank you, Emerald. And we'll see you all soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.